Today I'm going to be ranking your guys' starter teams for FC25 Ultimate Team, offering my thoughts and opinions on what you guys have built. If you want to get featured in these kind of videos going forward, make sure you follow me on X. And let's get into the first team. So some of you have used Easy SBC, which gives player predicted prices, which I think are very, very hard to judge because the market is different every single year. But this first squad here is supposed to be around a 100k starter squad. We're thinking Alvarez up front with Correa. The dual Atletico partnership would actually be amazing. Both of those cards look fantastic. However, because they are known players and in a very, very highly rated league, they might be a bit more expensive than people are hoping for, especially Julian Alvarez. We've got Galeno on the wing, who should be really cheap. These kind of players 5 years ago would have cost about 25k at the start of the year, but because of how quick packs come out and everything like that, these players are bypassed immediately, and so you should be able to pick them up for very, very cheap. Daniel Marlin, on the other hand, will have a little bit more of a cost associated to him because he's with Dortmund. You got De Paul for that Alvarez and Correa hyperlink. 6k is an interesting price estimate. Frank Kessie, though, I think will probably be quite cheap because of the rating, league, and nation. At the back, this is what everyone said they were going to build last year. We saw players like St. Just and Ibanez, and everyone looked like they were going to go Saudi or Liga NOS as their starter teams. But then when we realised how easy it was to bypass those and get to the next stage of players, these players were basically discard straight away. So that is why on Easy SBC, the price predictions for all of these guys at the back that are from those leagues are so low, even though their stats are actually really good. So as a starter team, it's not bad. I think you will probably surpass the defence that you have here. And the forward line may actually be a little bit more expensive than expected, but it depends on what your time frame is for your starter team. If this is aiming for the first weekend of FUT Champs, you'll be all good. Next up, we've got from JD, a rough idea, not something I'll definitely go for, but an idea. And this team would change formation in-game, which is going to be interesting to see how position changes in-game work with the new player role system. I don't think that Isak is going to be close to a starter team player. I think he's going to be a lot more expensive than people are expecting. 4-star, 5-star, 85 rated Premier League striker, good pace, good shooting, good dribbling, good physicality as well. This guy could easily cost a lot. Gyökeres, on the other hand, because he's in Liga NOS, even though his stats are fantastic, could be a bit more affordable for you. So it may be that you have to drop Isak, but we'll see how that goes. The rest are okay, I would say, in terms of the players that you've chosen here, because you've not gone too high, like Joelinton, Kudus, etc. This is a West Ham fan, if you couldn't tell from the amount of West Ham players in here. People are going to try and go for the tier above that, I think, early on this year, so you might be okay, and it's a decent starter team. We'll have to see exactly what kind of player roles are the meta and most used ones, because that will completely change the market in terms of how expensive players are. For example, if Areola in goal, even though he's 81 rated, has the perfect play styles, roles, etc., he might be way more expensive than an 86 goalkeeper. And Wan-Bissaka might be amazing if the meta is all about out-and-out defence at right back rather than needing an overlapping wing-back kind of player. So those things are completely unknown to us right now, but I think other than Isak, it's not bad. This one comes in from Tom, and he says that this is going to be based around McAllister, and that is what his Road to Glory or account is going to be based on, which is why he stands out like a sore thumb right here. An 86 rated card in the midst of this squad. I think the rest is actually incredibly affordable. You may be looking at a more premium price for Schlotterbeck. However, people like Mavididi, this is exactly what I was talking about before. 5 years ago, Mavididi, because he has 88 pace and he's in the Premier League in English, probably would have cost like 10k. I remember Mikel Antonio being extinct at 10k at the start of the year. These are the kind of players that nowadays you don't even look at. So if this is actually your plan to start things off, you are easily going to be affording some of these players because they are genuinely going to be discard on probably day 2 of the game being out. I love the Leicester players, like, don't get me wrong. I'll probably be using some of them, but yeah, they are definitely going to be affordable. Guirassy is a really interesting pick because I don't think he's going to be too expensive due to his under 70 pace, but in reality, we don't know whether you need loads and loads of pace on the game this year. Next up, we have Jack Heath, who has, sort of understood their own assignment, really. He says, had most fun towards the end of the year when I'd evoed a couple of players. So this year, going full evo all year, and at least I won't need many coins to buy the team. You aren't wrong, to be fair. I rate it massively. I personally ended my FC24 journey by using my full Leicester Evo team in Foot Champs. Managed to get 15 wins with it. That was really, really fun. And this year, I plan to do a load of Evos to do with Leicester, Leicester women, and past and present players as well, to try and have that team on the side throughout the entire year. I'd also like to try and get some Evos into my main squad. Like, imagine at all times throughout an entire game cycle, Evos being so good that I could have a Leicester player in my main team throughout the whole year. I would love that to be the case, but we'll have to see exactly what Evos we're going to get from EA and whether you are going to struggle at the start because they focus on low-rated golds going up to 80s, 85s, and they'll potentially leave the bronzes and silvers behind. But I wish you luck. From Alex, this is an interesting one here. Obviously with points, and as long as like last time at the start, the women players are cheap. I think that maybe this year people will have actually rated the women's players a little bit more than they did last year. You saw at the start some of the incredible prices that you would get. I personally used Bon Mati, Mappy Leon at the start of the year, and they were amazing for the value. Oshawola as well, really, really good cards, because I feel like a lot of people just didn't think that the women would be as good. But as we went throughout the year, you saw more and more women cards get promos, and the amount of women that were basically mainstays in people's teams for chunks of the year was crazy. When that Sour came out midway through the year, that was crazy. She was everywhere. So I do think you might slightly be pushing it over here with Diani, but the rest might be okay. I think Chouameni might be an expensive card here. I don't know how many points you are planning to add onto the game, and therefore how easily you're actually going to be able to attain this. Some of these players are going to be significantly cheaper than others. Koundé could easily be very expensive again this year, and Courtois maybe at the start of the year as well. Modric maybe not as much as previous years, but yeah, it really, really depends here how much money you're spending on the game. This from Ayan is the penultimate team we're looking at here, hoping to make a team like this at least at the start of the game and then make it into a Man United past and present team. I rate the idea. One thing that will be interesting to see is, do certain clubs' players still have that basically inflated price, like Garnacho? His stats aren't insane this year, but he plays for Man United. Is that going to mean that he's significantly more expensive than he should be? I would hope not, but we'll have to wait and see. I'm intrigued as to why in some positions you haven't gone for slightly higher rated players. For example, Mason Mount, maybe you wouldn't jump all the way up to Bruno Fernandes, but maybe you'd find someone else from the Premier League that would fit that slot that's maybe around the 83 rated mark, something like that. Because they shouldn't be too expensive unless you're going for the top tier cards. You have to think, each year we get more and more untradeable packs at the start of the year, which means that you can do a lot more with your squad even quicker each year. So De Ligt maybe will have a bit of value here, as well as Van de Ven could be quite expensive because he's rapid and he's got decent stats elsewhere. Whereas if you go for someone like Lacroix, he has good pace, but his defensive and physical stats won't be as good, so he can be a cheap alternative. Mickey van der Ven may be very, very expensive. And this is the final team we're going to review today. Hopefully going into the first weekend league like this. Ultimate Edition points and 12k points. Squad Battle rewards hopefully look like this by Monday. Nick Pope should be fine. Joe Gomez, I think, will be okay this year. because he won't have a ton of play styles. He's not that high rated, and I think that will just keep his price a little bit lower. Kadioglu, it really depends on how much people value pace in fullbacks. Same with a doggy. Kanate could be a bit more expensive. I think you're going to be paying more of a premium for him than someone like Joe Gomez. Matheus Nunes should be ridiculously cheap. I don't think Szoboszlai will be that expensive because, again, 81 rated, even though he's got some decent face stats, play styles, in-game stats and things like that may hold him back a little bit. Luis Diaz, I think you're going to be paying a bit for, as well as maybe Chiesa. These will be interesting to try and keep track of their prices at the start of the year, because whilst you are adding 12,000 points and going to get some rewards and stuff like that, it really depends on how many coins you make from those points. If you get any decent pulls, that's obviously going to make this a lot more attainable for you. Marcus Rashford is exactly what I was talking about in the previous team, and Nunes sort of falls into that category as well. Are these players going to be as expensive as they should be? Will a player with the same stats in a different league cost a quarter of the price? Probably. So that is why Premier League is always very risky to start out the game, because you are potentially overpaying a lot at the start of the year for the cards. And it's why I normally end up going, I've often gone Bundesliga, but Serie A is my main route at the start of the year. And I think it's probably where I'm going to be heading again this year. Or a variation of maybe like Liga F and the women's leagues, because their value last year was really good as well. So Premier League is always one that I know that this person, for those of you that don't know them, has been in the scene for a good amount of time. And so they know the ropes and stuff like that. They're not new to the game. But for those of you that are, I wouldn't really suggest going for Premier League at the start, just because it is so inflated compared to the other leagues for the quality of cards and players that you're actually getting. So, as I said before, if you want to be featured in more videos like this going forward, I want to involve you, the community, more going throughout this year. So, if you want to send me your teams and things like that, make sure you're following me on X, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you guys very soon for FC25. In a bit.